county welfare departments or the Department of Social Services to request a consumer disclosure on behalf of the foster youth in the year of their 16th birthday. This bill specifies that the chosen approach, whether it's at the state or the county level, should be the most efficient option. It also requires the Department of Social Services to use more efficient methods, such as batch processing, when submitting requests. If identity theft is then detected, the bill authorizes the requesting entity to refer them to an approved government agent or agency or nonprofit organization that provides assistance with resolving the issues around the identity theft. This bill further authorizes that entity to take remedial action on behalf of the foster youth to clear his or her credit report. AB 846 alleviates inefficiencies in the current law and ultimately protects foster youth from the negative effects of identity theft so they can successfully transition into adulthood. Thank you very much. And today I have with me Frank Mecca from the County Welfare Directors Association of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank Mecca, as the author indicated, this is cleanup to an Assemblymember Bill May's piece of legislation, and as we attempted to implement that bill and work with credit agencies, we found that the most efficient way to implement by sort of batch processing requests and not having 58 counties on behalf of all the foster youth submitting separate individual requests for their credit reports, which was inefficient. The credit reporting agency said it would be difficult to comply with, and when we worked out the most efficient way to implement, we realized that technically speaking, the original legislation didn't authorize the most efficient way to get to then Assemblymember Mays' end. And so these are the changes that will allow the most efficient implementation of that bill that will help us protect foster youth, and so we'd urge your support. Thank you.
Kelly Brooks on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. We would just note that foster youth who are victims of identity theft have increased difficulty in obtaining housing and other financial services, and we think this is a very cost-effective and common-sense approach to implementing the original legislation. Thank you.
So moved. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Other speakers in support, name and affiliation, please.
Juliana Vorth with the Urban Counties Caucus, also in strong support of the bill.
Thank you. Other speakers in support.
My name is Chantel, and I'm here with Youth Connections, and I support this bill.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Katina, and I'm with California Youth Connection, and we're here to support the bill.
Thank you.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777 and 792, representing social service county workers in support of this bill.
Thank you.
TOR on behalf of the Service Employees International Union, we represent the social workers statewide, and we're in support.
Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Gabalis with the California Alliance for Child and Family Services, and we're also in support.
Thank you.
Leslie Heimog, Children's Law Center of Los Angeles, and we support this bill and would just note it is a very real problem that we see on a regular basis.
Thank you. Other comments from committee?
Thank you. I noticed that it's going to go to, again, appropriations because it's fiscal, correct? Or not? I made some phone calls because the bill makes a lot of sense to me, So I made some phone calls actually in the office when we got the analysis, and, they're entitled to like one free credit report a year. So there wouldn't be a cost, like, as far as pulling the credit report. Where's the cost at? Is that from the follow-up or?
I'm not sure. I don't know if you have the answer.
If they're 16 or 17 and you realize that there's a problem with their credit report, you get a free credit report, and then the social worker would just have to expunge or absolve or somehow get the foster youth's record clean if it was abused, correct? Or
yes, and vis-a-vis the prior law, we don't think this adds any new costs. In fact, we think it allows us a more efficient way of implementing. I think Legislative Council, when they designate bills, if any bill affects anything that involves any kind of workload, they err on the side of tagging it fiscal so that the Appropriations Committee can evaluate the cost. We don't believe that this would cost, and that's what we would argue in the Appropriations Committee. We think it's actually cheaper.
That it would reduce costs. That this is actually an efficiency measure, the type of thing we need to be doing to actually be more efficient in how we're handling the roughly 5,000 16-year-olds that we have in any given year. So I actually think this would be a cost-saving measure.
I was just, like I said, when I made the phone calls, and it was free once a year, and you could actually do that when they were 16 and pull all 3 credit reports free, online actually. I was wondering where the cost came in. Again, another bill with costs that are not really costs, so I was curious.
The bill also requires that if there's an anomaly, if there's something wrong, that we follow up on it so that we can correct and redress any problem. That was sort of inherent in the expectations of the original bill. We would never pull it, find a problem, and then say, sorry, you're on your own. So, I mean, vis-a-vis the common sense way of interpreting prior law, we don't see this as a new requirement. It's just a better way to do it.
Thank you.
And I think I may have forgotten. Are there any speakers in opposition to the bill? Ms. Grover, did you have anything else?
No. Thanks.
Ms. Bonilla, have you talked to the Department of Social Services? Do they have any concerns regarding costs? Or?
Well, I can say we've worked with the Department of Social Services in implementing the original bill, and it was the Department of Social Services, in fact, that originally suggested that we need cleanup in the statute in order to implement in this way. So I can't certainly speak for the administration, but they have indicated to us that these changes would allow for a batch processing of these requests in a way that they believe current law will not.
Maybe a letter of support from them when you go to appropriations might be appropriate.
Good idea. Thank you for the suggestion.
Let me go ahead.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. That generated one more question. Can the credit reporting agency still at zero cost process groups of batch instead of individually?
Yes, they've actually suggested it would be easier for them to process these requests in this manner.
Thank you.
One final question from me. Governor Schwarzenegger had vetoed 2 prior bills similar or identical to this. Do you have any comments to that? Is your bill significantly different than those other 2 bills, or?
It's not significantly different. I believe that down in LA County, they've actually been running with this, and they've had a pilot. It's been proven successful, and I would just say that time has passed since those vetoes, and now you have basically all the stakeholders saying this works, it's more efficient, it's actually an improvement on and better government.
Okay, great. We have Mr. Portantino.
And sometimes he was just wrong.
We have a motion, we have a second,
Thank you.
And I'm going to lay off of it for today and wait for the fiscal analysis on it, and then we'll see what happens when it comes to the floor. So thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Bell? Jones? Jones not voting. Amiano? Grove? Grove not voting. Hall? Hall, aye. Portantino? Portantino, aye. 2-0.
Okay, you have 2. You need 2 more, and you're on call. Thank you. Okay, I believe Ms. Mitchell is here for file item 4.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I've got 2 bills before the committee today. I'm going to start with AB 419.
Okay.
I appreciate that. In California, community care facilities that care for children in child care and foster care and our frail elderly and adult day and residential care facilities are visited once every 5 years. That means that a child entering into a child care program at 6 months old might not have that facility visited by anyone from community care licensing before entering kindergarten. Your elderly parent could move into an assisted living facility at, say, age 86 and pass away before a visit is ever made. Licensing is critical to ensure basic health and safety for the most vulnerable in our communities. The National Association of Child Care Resource and Referral Programs rates California 47th in the nation in oversight and inspections for child care programs. AB 419 would create a more efficient system of inspections to ensure that every community care facility receives an unannounced visit once a year and family child care facilities every other year. Inspections will focus on the use of research-based and piloted key indicators unique to each facility type using a risk assessment system that predicts compliance with the licensing regulations as opposed to the existing, more time-consuming comprehensive review. I'm also presenting amendments today which are referenced in the committee analysis. The fee increase has been removed. This is a cost-neutral bill. Even though visits are more frequent, the time required for each visit is reduced. I'm very aware of the devastating reductions to community-based programs, and the fees would add an additional expense to them. We've made several other amendments at the suggestion of stakeholders and the department. While we wish we had additional resources, the purpose of this bill is to maximize the dollars currently available. We will continue our work with the advocates who still have some concerns. The extensive list of supporters is listed in the analysis, which we appreciate. They include child care and senior advocates and providers, CBOs, the business community, as well as the Department of Defense. The California Council of Community Mental Health Agencies has removed their opposition pending a review of the amendments. I'm pleased to be joined today by my former colleague, Danita Stromgen, Policy and Member Services Director of the California Resource and Referral Network, and Laurie J. Crehan from the Department of Defense, their State Liaison Office, Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Military, Community, and Family Policy. Danita?
Danita Stromgren, Policy Director with the California Child Care Resource and Referral Network. We represent 58 member agencies statewide who work daily with thousands of child care providers and parents seeking child care. The issue of increased frequency in visits for child care programs has been a long-standing policy goal of the network, in particular since 2002 when the frequency of visits changed to once every 5 years, as noted by the Assembly member. We're pleased to support this bill. The Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing has really done an amazing job in terms of researching, reviewing, and piloting a process to increase the oversight and therefore the health and safety in community care facilities while still addressing the critical issue of the budget crisis that we face in California. So they're doing all of this at no cost, and we think it's really a model for efficiency. Using the risk assessment process, they've developed these key indicator tools for every community care facility. According to Dr. Richard Feeney, professor at Penn State, 30 years of research and implementation have proven that the use of this type of tool is a cost-efficient and effective methodology for licensing and monitoring of all human service facilities. Our membership feels strongly that increasing the licensing visits that child care providers have, and we believe that the majority of child care providers and all community care providers really want to do the best job that they can. We believe this will improve the quality of the services that are provided. We believe that people will become more aware of the licensing regulations, that they will do a better job of self-assessing their programs, and they'll be able to apply the licensing regulations in a more consistent manner. Licensing evaluators will also be in a position to be able to be more consistent with the review of the facilities. So on behalf of our membership and the many, many programs that have supported this bill and our co-sponsor, Preschool California, we request your support of AB 419.
Thank you. Additional speakers in support.
And before she speaks, it just occurred to me that I should probably give my colleagues some context, because I'm sure you're wondering, why is the Department of Defense here on a community care licensing bill for child care? As I stated, we're here.
That's right.
As I stated, according to the National Association of Resource and Referral Agencies, California ranks 47th in terms of the quality indicator in terms of our child care facilities based on the infrequency with which we have licensing visiting. Department of Defense is ranked #1 in the nation in terms of the quality of their child care programming. So that's why they're here, so we can hopefully learn something from their stellar example.
Thank you.
Lori?
Thank you. Laurie Crehan, Department of Defense State Liaison Office, under the direction of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness and the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Military, Community, and Family Policy. Currently, our military child care centers are not able to meet the increasing demand for child care from our military families. About 63% of our military families live off base, and so they are accessing child care in their communities. However, in order to qualify for the Department of Defense subsidies to that child care, these families must access child care facilities that meet the Department of Defense standards. We have a brand new initiative that is being piloted in 13 states. California is one of them. The Department of Defense Child Care Expansion for Military Families Initiative. And we're working with the National Association for Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies to work with states to establish or adapt state standards so that they're more closely aligned with the Department of Defense standards. When that happens, when that alignment occurs, then we'll be able to use the state standards to identify those child care facilities that do meet the minimal Department of Defense standards, and we'll be able to subsidize the military families in order to allow them to attend those child care facilities. This will help us meet our need. However, a very important element of our baseline standards that have been established for our subsidy program is that military families child care center must have an annual inspection, and they must be a licensed facility. Therefore, the passage of AB 419, which requires annual inspections, would directly support increasing quality and accessibility to child care for our military families. I ask for your support of the annual inspections found in AB 419.
Thank you. Other speakers in support, name and affiliation, please.
Jenny Paul Rappaport on behalf of Preschool California. A robust licensing system is essential for basic health and safety standards for our children and child development centers. We're very proud to co-sponsor this bill.
Thank you.
Heather Harrison with the California Assisted Living Association in strong support. We've been working to increase the frequency of licensing inspections for the last few years, and we're very pleased to be here in support of this bill.
Thank you.
Hello again, members. Teresa Cook on behalf of Atria Senior Living, a member of the California Assisted Living Association, proudly supporting your measure. Thank you.
Hello again, Teresa Rentgen, Alzheimer's Association.
Tim Fitzharris with three organizations: Professional Association for Childhood Development, the Early Education Consortium based in Washington, D.C., another national one, and the Child Development Policy Institute.
Thank you.
Nina Boothie with the California Child Development Administrators Association in support of the bill, but with the proposed amendments to reduce the fees, in strong support of the bill. So thank you.
Sorry. Brad Strong, Children Now, in support.
Thank you.
Peter Kellis, Aging Services of California, representing continuing care retirement communities, in support.
Thank you. Not yet.
Karen Jones with the California Long-Term Care Ombudsman Office, and we're in support with the changes that have recently been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers in support? Are there any speakers in opposition? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe that your bill's already been amended, or you're accepting the amendments?
As I stated in my statement, yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments from the committee? Ms. Mitchell, I just have one question on, and I apologize, you mentioned it in your opening, and I just missed it. You said that the bill is cost neutral. Can you review that for me, please, and tell me how you came to that conclusion?
Two reasons, and then I may ask for some support. A, the fees have been removed once we got clarification from the department that there's no correlation to the fee and actually payment for the visit. So there's no, they don't connect within the department. Secondly, as we talked about, while the frequency will increase for the visits, the length of the visits will be shortened. Using these new protocols and this streamlined kind of template that will be used by the analysts who go in to do the visits and do the inspection, it will be an abbreviated, shortened time frame, which is a wash in terms of more frequent visits versus every 5 years or whenever.
So it's your contention that the inspectors will be able to get more inspections done per day, even though they're inspecting more often?
Correct.
Okay. And
Danita, do you have anything to add?
Just for further clarification, right now there's quite a bit of administrative task involved in processing each of the different protocols for licensing, the 30% random list, which requires then the licensing evaluators to visit programs that might be geographically much further away from one another.
Right.
So when you change the protocol to something that we're talking about in terms of annually, they can select then those programs that are closer to one another, therefore attend and visit more in one particular day, especially when you add that on to the shorter visit time.
Okay. And I just want to let you know, based on those two answers, I'm happy to support your bill.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments from the committee? We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Bell? Jones?
Yes.
Jones, aye. Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Grove? Grove, aye. Hall? Portantino? Aye. Portantino, aye.
If I can, if you can grab Mr. Portantino real quick. We have a technical error on a previous motion we need to fix while I've got 4 members here, if we can do that real quick. Ms. Mitchell, if you'll just indulge me for a minute while I fix this. On item number 5, AB 494, 493, we need to rescind the motion and redo the motion. We forgot to add as amended in our motion on that. So do you have the roll from before? The roll before, Jones, aye. Grove, aye. Hall, aye. Portantino, aye. So by unanimous consent, so do I need to make a motion here?
Yeah.
It's a 2-point motion. We need to rescind by unanimous consent the original motion and substitute with a do pass as amended motion. I'll make that motion.
The analysis was made, it was analyzed as proposed to be amended.
Yes, the chair's recommendation was approve as amended.
Yeah, so did the author accept the amendments is my question.
Oh.
So we should not do anything without the author here. I'm just...
Okay, I
would like...
Thank you, Mr. Portantino.
I mean, it seems like that's a courtesy, right?
Right.
We should have the author here because the motion is, and it already happened, so we should have the author here. I would think, but I'm not the chair.
Let's clarify. It was the author's motion, it was the author's amendments or the committee's amendments? No, they're the author's amendments. Okay.
I just feel comfortable having the author here, that's all.
And I support that. That'd be fine. Yeah. Mr. Perea. Sorry for the confusion.
Not a problem.
See what happens when the chair leaves, the whole thing. I told him earlier, the whole thing falls apart.
Mr. Bell, please come back immediately.
Right.
Clearly, I need you.
We support his leadership. All right. Item number 2. I'm sorry. Ms. Mitchell's second item.
Yes.
Item number 9.
Yes,
AB 756.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I appreciate you. Mr. Chair and members, AB 756 seeks to find relief for CalWORKS participants who are unable to withdraw their basic needs cash grant without paying a surcharge when they use their EBT, their electronic benefit transfer card. Maximum CalWORKS grants put families below 40% of the federal poverty line. And thanks to our recent budget cuts and conversations you've clearly had today in the context of other legislation, the average monthly grant for a family of 3 will drop to $638 per month. That's the lowest rate the state of California has paid CalWORKS recipients in 25 years. The $3 fee levied by banks to withdraw a basic needs grant can represent a significant portion of a family's income. I thought it important that we think about it in the context of our own lives. So when you think about the context of a month, on average, you may make 4 trips to the market. You may pay your utilities, phone, water, gas, electric. You may purchase gas, pay your auto insurance, or buy a bus pass. You may withdraw cash to pay your rent and incidentals, perhaps once a week. In short, the list I just shared with you equals 16 transactions, which would be over $48 a month. Remember, based on the actions this body has taken, thanks to the recent budget cuts, the award will drop to $638 per month. Based on my math, that will be almost 10% of their monthly cash grant will go to the fees levied by the banks. In 2008, banks charged $8.8 million in ATM surcharges from our state's poorest families. Since then, these fees have increased from $700,000 a month to over $1 million per month. Between 2007 and 2009, the largest ATM networks increased their fees by an average of 47%. The opposition suggested that the increase in fees charged to the banked and the unbanked customers represents necessary changes in the banking industry to make up for losses incurred by changes in federal law. These increases, however, predate the new federal banking laws and were done at the same time that many of the larger institutions were also receiving unprecedented federal bailout funds and instigating a landslide of housing foreclosures. What I find that they don't tell us is that some banks and ATM networks have increased fees. Many banks, both large and small, have refused to charge a fee to our state's poorest residents. And I believe you have a list there of some of the banks that currently do not charge a fee. You'll also hear talk about how this bill will have a cumulative effect of reducing access to EBT customers. My response is that access can only be reduced if banks choose to no longer serve EBT recipients. Additionally, some of the large banks that are charging California's poorest families $3 per withdrawal or per point of sale purchase are not charging similar fees in other states. For example, B of A provides free EBT ATM access in the states of New York and Michigan. Here with me today to speak on behalf of the bill is Jessica Bartholomew from the Western Center on Law and Poverty, the bill sponsors, and Brian Augusta from the California Reinvestment Corporation.
Thank you, speakers.
Which mic? Good afternoon, Brian Augusta on behalf of the California Reinvestment Coalition. Our organization was part of the advocacy steering committee that worked with other stakeholders on the rollout of EBT a number of years ago. And as we shifted to this system in California, delivering benefits from providing checks to using a card to deliver the benefits, our concern had long been that exactly what we're seeing here today was going to occur, that more and more of the families in very limited benefits were going to be eaten up in these transaction fees. Now, if consumers have a choice, and including a choice as to whether or not to even make the purchase, that's a slightly different equation. But in this instance, particularly for many of our consumers and Western Center's clients who are the unbanked, who are living in communities where there is no bank-sponsored ATM available, there is no freestanding bank. This has always been our concern, that they have no choice to even get their benefits, but to incur these additional fees. And so what we see is $1.6 billion a month in funding from public benefits. You know, our collective tax dollars, which are providing food and shelter for children in need, being eaten up instead by fees charged to consumers who have no choice but to pay those fees to get their basic benefits. And for those reasons, we think the state ought to be able to step in and say these fees are inappropriate. We think there should be some limits, and that's what we think in a very reasonable way this bill does, which addresses our longstanding concerns, and we would hope the committee would support us in protecting these public benefits and protecting our use of these resources, and we would urge an aye vote.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman and members. This is Jessica Bartholomew, Western Center on Law and Poverty. You know, we are the sponsor of the bill, and for us, this bill is very significant, especially considering the cuts recently made by the Assembly and the Senate and signed into law by the governor, which, as the Assemblywoman said, will put CalWORKs families below 40% of the federal poverty line. When we looked out to see what kind of research there was to tell us what happens to families below 40% of the poverty line, there was no research. There isn't research to tell us what happens to families that low below the poverty line. We know that they are currently going without food and the basic needs for their families, and with the additional cut, it'll be even more severe. Let me talk to you a little bit about what these numbers mean. So you heard about the family of three will now have a maximum benefit of $638 a month, but the average benefit will be much less. Currently, the average benefit is $504 for that same family of 3. Why is that? Well, because some parents are not receiving assistance. A lot of people don't realize that the second-born child in a CalWORKS household, or the third-born or the fourth-born, they actually don't receive benefits due to a law called the Maximum Family Grant. So a lot of families are receiving less benefits than the maximum. So let's take the $504 that a family of 3 is living on in California. The Department of Social Services did a survey in 2004 and found that the average amount paid in rent for a household of that size was $426. If you take that math and you look at what the United States Department of Agriculture expects that same family to spend as their portion of cash towards their food benefit, remember that the CalFresh program is just a supplement to their food budget. The USDA expects $36 to go towards food. So once a household of 3 in California has spent their money on their rent from 2004 numbers and their money on their food, they have $42 left over. $42 to pay the utilities, $42 to buy bus passes so their kids can get to school, to put shoes on their kids' feet. And this committee just voted to legislate how we spend that $42. I would like for this committee to also consider that $42 shouldn't go to the pockets of big banks. And banks any bank really, in our state, they've gotten a lot of help. Banks have gotten a lot of help as an industry from our country and our taxpayers. These $42 are significant to the family of 3, and we think it's really important that we help to protect where those dollars go. So please consider that when you vote today on this bill, and we hope you vote yes.
Thank you very much. Other speakers in support?
Dee Hamby, California National Organization of Women, and we strongly support this bill.
Thank you.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter, in support.
Beth McGovern with the California Commission on the Status of Women, in strong support.
Judith Larson on behalf of Jericho, A Voice for Justice, in strong support.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777 and 792 in support.
Adriana Zaria on behalf of the State Treasurer, and we support this bill.
Tia Orr on behalf of the Service Employees International Union, we're in strong support.
Frank Mecca, CWDA, in support.
Kevin Aslan, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organizations. We support this bill that would make sure that the money won't go to the banks. It will go to the people, the poor kids who need food and housing.
Thank you.
Olivia Calderon, New America Foundation, in support.
Any other speakers in support? Speakers in opposition?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Alex Alanis with the California Bankers Association. As you might have seen in your analysis, it does mention that a company named ACS has won the contract to provide EBT services for the Department of Social Services to provide these benefits to CalWORKS recipients. In current statute today, it states all reasonable measures shall be taken in order to ensure that recipients have access to electronically issued benefits through systems such as automated teller machines, point-of-sale devices, and other devices that accept electronic benefit transfer transactions. The current contract winner does not do that. And nothing's being discussed about that. I haven't heard of that company being brought in to explain why they're not offering this access. I haven't heard the department come and state in public why they signed a contract, and this access is being denied to the CalWORKS recipients. However, and we respectfully oppose Mrs. Mitchell's bill, the rest of us are being punished for the bad actions of the contract winner. We think that's completely unfair. You're talking the entire financial institutions industry. You're talking about retailers. You're talking about grocers. You're talking about the small shop, the small little grocery store down the street, the gas station. Anybody who charges the point of sale or has an ATM transaction will have to essentially subsidize the contract winner. We believe that's just not a way you do business, not just in private industry, but in public contracting. I think that we need to go to the source. The source is the person who had won the contract and is not subcontracting with somebody to ensure that CalWORK recipients are receiving their benefits 4 times free per month. And that's not being abided by, and we think that's probably the first route that we ought to take. Second of all, this bill sets up an operational, I would say, a nightmare for us. There's discussion about banks that offer free EBT access. What we may be running into is they may offer free access to everybody, not just to EBT recipients, but to people who are outside their system as well. And it's very difficult to really determine whether a card is an EBT card or even an EBT card for CalWORKs. The ATM will accept the card and make a determination, is this a valid card? After it makes that determination, it'll decide, is this our card or is it someone else's? Oftentimes the question next asked, you will be charged whatever the fee is, and do you opt in or you opt out? And that happens to someone who has an ATM card who belongs to another financial institution, or if you just go to an independent ATM that's not linked to a bank or a credit union, but that's like in a 7-Eleven for that matter. And they just won't accept cards that are not theirs unless you opt into the fee. Yes. What we believe, though, is that you may end up having the perverse effect of having access denied. And Ms. Mitchell mentioned that, but it is a reality that if they don't opt into the fee, that the card will be denied.
Okay.
And so
wrap up. Thank you.
So the long and the short of it is that, I think we just need to get to the contract winner first and the Department of Social Services to explain why what the intent of the statute is today is not being met.
Thank you. Thank you. Second speaker.
Mr. Chair and members, Melissa M. Alexson with the California Credit Union League, and I represent 400 credit unions in the state of California and the not-for-profit entity of the banking world. We don't disagree with the intention of the bill. Quite frankly, we believe in it. However, we just don't believe this is the appropriate direction to get us here. And we wish that, as in the case of other states, this problem was addressed when the contract was signed. And the problem really is access to ATM machines. And I'll just give you a little background about the cost of an ATM machine. The credit unions have a network of ATM machines. It's predominant. It's called the Co-op network. It's 5,000 free ATM access for any credit union member in the state of California. ATMs cost, on average, $80,000 to purchase. They depreciate after 3 years. On average, it costs $1,500 to $2,000 per month in average maintenance, and that has to do with deposits and cash filling and processing, alarms, safety measures, and just general maintenance of those machines. It's an expensive network that as a private entity we've decided to provide for our members. There's also a risk of fraud associated with ATM machines, and especially in the case of foreign cards, they carry a heavier fraud risk than a credit union card. So again, I don't want to hit on the technological aspects that my colleague hit on, but it would be a new technology that would have to be implemented that would come with a cost to our specific financial institution. So for us, it's a simple matter of fairness. As a private industry, we've decided to offer this system for our members, and we share the concerns about the contract. Was the contractor asked how many ATMs that they had statewide and how many free access points they had, because now the contractor is relying on our service. They're reaping the benefits of the contract and, again, relying on our cost and our network. We believe strongly in the unbanked community and getting them into mainstream financial institutions, and we'd love to work on a solution where, we could help connect or maybe even require beneficiaries to have a relationship with a depository institution, a mainstream financial institution, so then we solve a lot of these problems, and they'd have access to ATM machines for free as well as other products and services. So that's really our goal, and we'd love to work on that issue. So for those reasons, we're opposed.
Thank you. I just want to clarify one statement that the first speaker made. You mentioned 4 times free. Is that under the current law that at any bank or
the current contract.
It's actually by the provide who won the contract. The contract award winner is the person who has to provide for free.
So ACS provides for free access.
The contract stipulated that. I think the they don't pay me to represent their perspective. However,
I asked for your understanding of.
And so that's the contract language. I think the challenge that they would suggest is that they don't. That contractor doesn't have the supply, if you will, of ATM machines statewide to allow recipients to have adequate access.
Is this to clarify this?
Yeah, just to clarify. So there are two different things. That's the transaction fee. That the ACS cannot receive a transaction fee from the recipient until the fourth transaction. And banks are charging surcharges at the first transaction, second transaction, third transaction, fourth transaction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other speakers in opposition? Opposition?
Kevin Asnian, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organization, in strong opposition. Strong support, I'm sorry.
Kevin, you got to jack me up. Go sit down, Kevin.
We don't yet, no.
Ignore that masked man.
I will do that. Ms. Mitchell, I believe Ms. Grove had a question.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, that even gave me a little bit of a heart flutter. Wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Okay.
It's my understanding this is probably the second or third contract that was issued, or second contract that was issued?
I have no idea.
It is. The first contract came in 2003, or actually 2002, in preparation for rollout in 2003, and that was with a bank that then sold to another bank, and then this new contract was implemented in 2009. So
this is the first time with this vendor. The previous contract was with another bank.
Did the previous contract charge the same fees, or were they? Was there no fees on that contract?
So actually, the fourth transaction fee that you see in the statute is pretty standard across the country for EBT systems. When J.P. Morgan Chase was the vendor for EBT in California prior to 2009, they actually provided free cash access at their ATM sites, and then also got the transaction fee after the fourth transaction. They only got the transaction after the fourth transaction. They only got the transaction fee after the fourth transaction. When they lost the contract, they did change from free to $3.
So I think the difference is when the first vendor had the contract, they actually have ATM machines across the state. The challenge is this current vendor doesn't, and so beneficiaries are using the ATMs represented by the opposition who did not
a contract to
your state of California, Ms. Grove.
No, but listen,
the Schwarzenegger administration.
I wasn't a part of that.
The Schwarzenegger administration.
And that would make two of us. That's why I'm here trying to fix it.
I wasn't a part of that.
Me either.
Okay, so the state of California issued a contract to banks to comply with an ATM or an EBT debit card, and they don't have any ATM or EBT debit card machines, basically, or very few, limited. And they have a contract, and they're receiving the rewards of that contract when they have no way to deliver services to the people that you're trying to represent.
The state of California entered into a contract, and it appears that there is a lack of access to free locations. And I don't know, I can't speak to the relationship between the two.
Okay, so, but the contract award winner is receiving the benefits of the contract, but
and we're bound by that contract until 2014.
And not being able to deliver the services to the needy people that you're trying to represent.
That's
correct?
Our understanding, and that's not what we're focused on in this bill. But you are correct.
Okay.
And we're bound by that contract until 2014.
So your bill addresses a punishment to people that aren't even responsible for delivering the services. I mean, it's not their job to deliver the services for free under the contract, is what I'm trying to understand, is why
nor should the CalWorks beneficiaries who, for no fault of their own, are now receiving EBT cards because the state of California determined it was more cost efficient and effective for us to make their federally funded entitlement payments via EBT card versus check. So the beneficiaries didn't have a say in the matter either.
But on the flip side of that, it's not really the banking industry's responsibility or fault either. So I think we're going after the wrong. I don't want to call the banking industry the culprit. They're not a culprit. We're going after the wrong entity here, don't you think?
So I appreciate your perspective, and the focus of my bill is to protect the beneficiaries who are entitled to receive their CalWorks support, and to make sure that as we cut their award, as actions taken by this committee further limit the award and how they can use their federally entitled program, I want to make sure that they get every penny that they're entitled to.
But
that's the focus of my bill.
But the focus of your bill is taking it from someone who has no responsibility in the process at all.
Okay, Ms. Grove, the focus of my bill is to support the beneficiaries. I'm not sure how else I could say that.
Again, you're asking someone to support it that is not in the process at all.
Ms. Mitchell, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions from committee before I? You mentioned in one of your statements regarding concern about banks discontinuing this service, and I'm also concerned about that. Did you have an answer for, if we pass this legislation, the banks sure are free to say we're not going to honor these cards anymore. Does that not raise a concern to you?
Again, as I stated in my statement, that is a claim that the industry has made, and that will be a decision the industry will have to make on their own. I mean, I can't control that. My concern currently are the fees that I feel and a number of the supporters and organizations that represent CalWorks recipients feel are unfair.
Okay.
That they and are unwarranted, and the banking industry will have to make a decision as to whether they want to continue to engage and honor the EBT, and the state of California and the Department of Social Services and all those that govern the CalWorks program will have to decide if that's acceptable to the state of California,
okay.
and where we invest the state of California's funds. That's a business decision the banks will have to make.
All right. And on that note, then that kind of leads me to my conclusion on. I certainly support where you're trying to go with this. I'm not going to support the bill for a couple of reasons. Number one, for that concern that the banks will discontinue receiving them. But to kind of support my argument in that, is there the sheet that I believe you handed this out with the list of banks that
Western Center did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a significant number of banks on here that are currently providing free access to their ATMs. My encouragement to the banking industry is I think that's a good business decision to provide free access to ATMs, because you've got a potential group of customers that I'm sure are trying to get themselves in a position where they're not on CalWorks and needing to use EBT.
Or unbanked.
I just don't believe that it's the legislature's responsibility to impose that on the banks to charge that fee or to not charge that fee. So I'm encouraged that in the free market system, there are some banks choosing not to impose that fee. And so I would highly recommend, if this bill doesn't make it out of here or doesn't pass, or even if you do in a subsequent bill want to address the deficiencies in the contract and the contractor of ACS, I would love to work with you on that and come to a more better conclusion on the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate that.
And we are looking for a motion on the bill.
And if I could just, in closing, very quickly, I wanted to clarify that to date, the grocers and the retailers have not opposed the bill. There was an inference to grocers and retailers in terms of how they would be impacted. So I just wanted to clarify that they haven't officially opposed the bill, to my knowledge.
All right.
Point of information.
Any other comments from the committee? We have a motion. We have a second. Please call the roll.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Jones?
No.
Jones, no. Amiano?
Aye.
Amiano, aye. Grove? No. Grove, no. Hall? Portantino? Portantino not voting. 2-0 on call.
Mr. Bell, would you like me to clear up the previous, we had a situation with Mr. Pereira's bill while you were gone.
Consideration, I'm sorry, before we move on.
I would love to grant you. Well, you're not, it's not closed yet, but if it doesn't pass by the end of the day, I think reconsideration.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Members, regarding the Perea bill, we got a ruling from Mr. Dotson. We're good with the way we handled it originally, so we're going to keep it as it was. So we'll move on now. The chair is back, and I think...
Finally.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, the Health Committee.
Mr. Hall, okay. So we're going to lift the calls on the Metro bills?
No.
Oh, only one is on the call.
One passed.
One passed.
Yeah, but I didn't vote on either of them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We
Okay.
don't have to lift the call on 419. He can just add on to that one. It passed already. We can lift the call on this one. So, do you want to go ahead and lift the call?
I'd like to lift a call on item 9. Call the roll, please.
Thank you.
Hall?
Hall, aye.
Hall, aye. It's 3-2. And we have one not voting, so the bill,
That's Part Needle. Not voting.
bill fails.
Bill fails. Bill fails.
Well, I'm sorry, item 9 is what?
Bill, Ms. Mitchell's bill fails because it did not receive 4 votes.
That's item 9756.
Yes, sir. You voted aye, and
Yes.
that makes 3 ayes, 2 noes, and 1 not voting.
Okay.
Excuse me, 419. Well, we didn't lift the call on that one.
I think Mr. Armiano wanted to change.
Mr. Armiano, can you have a request of the chair? On
Are we just lifting calls? I'm sorry.
no, just on that particular one. Mr. Hall came in right when the vote took place, and as a courtesy, I let him lift the call on that because he walked in right when the vote took place.
I believe she asked, Mr. Chair, did she not ask for reconsideration?
Yeah, we are putting it on the list of reconsideration. Yeah.
Very well.
Okay.
By unanimous consent, we're going to grant reconsideration.
Yeah.
You have to say.
By unanimous consent, we'll put the bill on reconsideration.
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Okay, next one is
Where's Mr. Hernandez?
Mr. Hernandez. Welcome. Mr. Hernandez, item 19 is AB 1182, and welcome to our committee. And you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Good afternoon. I present to you this afternoon AB 1182. AB 1182 would eliminate the vehicle asset limit on CalWorks applicants and recipients, enabling these poor and low-income working families to meet a basic necessity of having a reliable means of transportation to work. The ongoing economic downturn and the state's fiscal crisis continue to negatively and detrimentally affect Californians, bearing in mind that we, as a legislature, recently approved over $1.2 billion cuts to CalWorks, and that 12% of California's workforce are currently unemployed. We know that people are facing incredible challenges to meet their basic and daily needs of food and shelter. As a result, a growing number of families and individuals have turned to the CalWorks program for assistance. As of September 2010, close to 577,000 California families rely on the state's Welfare to Work program. Although CalWorks provides temporary supplemental aid to families, the primary goal of the program is to move families out of poverty and towards self-sufficiency. One of the key components of the program is requiring adult participants to work at least 32 hours every week. In order to meet these work participatory hours, CalWorks recipients need a dependable card to get to and from work. The vehicle limit was originally designed to allow families to retain a reliable car, to participate in a mandatory work participation hours, and to maintain employment. In order to be eligible for CalWorks, an applicant or recipient cannot have a vehicle worth more than $4,650. However, it has been 15 years since the vehicle asset test was last increased in California. The existing vehicle asset test proves to be a hindrance to families whose vehicle value is slightly above the limit because they ultimately face a choice between losing their automobile or foregoing needed cash assistance. For example, take into consideration a single mother with 3 small children. She was recently laid off from a mid-sized company that experienced sudden bankruptcy due to the economic recession. This single parent no longer has a stable income and therefore applies to CalWORKs so that she may get aid to provide for her children. But this single mother is turned away because she has a 2007 Camry that is worth more than $4,650. The vehicle asset test does not take into account whether the vehicle has been paid off or whether it was a gift. According to the New America Foundation, less than 0.1% of all CalWORKs cases is found to exceed the vehicle limit. This means that repealing the vehicle asset test would have a negligible impact on the general fund. Similarly, legislation to AB 1132 have been attempted in the past, though this year is very different from previous years. Just this year, the vehicle asset test was eliminated in the state's food stamp program, CalFresh. The federal health care reform also eliminated the asset test in Medi-Cal. Knowing that the asset test has been removed in 2 very critical social programs, this year serves as the perfect year to also remove the vehicle asset test in CalWORKs. In doing so, the state ensures that there is a level of consistency in all social program eligibility requirements, which in turn makes the CalFresh, Medi-Cal, and CalWORKs programs effective and successful in providing such needed aid and services. AB 1182 is an important step towards reducing the barriers to eligibility.
Move bill, Mr. Chair. You know what? I'm sorry for allowing you to keep.
I know. I was wondering why it's taking so long.
It's up.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Thank you. Here to testify in support and to answer questions is Olivia Calderon from the New America Foundation. Also here to testify in support is Jessica Bartholomew and Michael Harold from the Western Center on Law and Poverty. Thanks again for the motion and the second.
Thank you, Assemblyman Hernandez. Olivia Calderon with the New America Foundation. We're a national not-for-profit policy institute, and in the asset building program, advance policies to make it easy for families to build their personal savings and their assets. And for years now, I've been working to eliminate the overall asset test that we believe is counterproductive, counterintuitive, and keeps families stuck in CalWORKs. We believe that families don't spend their way out of poverty, they save their way out of poverty. And the $2,000 asset limit penalizes families for being responsible and saving so that they could become self-sufficient. The vehicle asset test is a subset of that. And if we focus solely on the vehicle, we receive data from LA County, and it's important because LA County makes up 1/3 of the CalWORKs population. And LA County found in 2009, for example, of the 160,000 applicants to LA County, 160,000 applicants, 6,800 were turned away. 6,800 failed one of the tests that folks have to meet in order to be eligible for CalWORKs. Only 11 of those cases, 11, were because of the vehicle asset test. But yet the state of California is applying this test to everyone that comes through the doors. And so we believe that the state is wasting money, applying a test that is impacting less than 0.1% of folks that come through the door. It makes no sense, which is why 33 states have already eliminated the vehicle asset test, and 5 states have eliminated the overall asset test. It's about time that California follows a national trend. And we know that state and national policy, the momentums with recent policy changes to the CalFresh program, the food stamps program, eliminated the asset test, and then thanks to healthcare reform, there's no longer going to be an asset test in Medi-Cal. And so it's about time that CalWORKs is true to its mission. In order for families to become self-sufficient and independent, which is the very mission of this program, we need to eliminate the asset test, and at the very least, the vehicle asset test.
Okay. Other speakers in favor?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. This is Jessica Bartholomew, Western Center on Law and Poverty. I think you heard from the Assemblyman and the sponsor of the bill the importance of this bill to help streamline application processes. We've already eliminated the auto resource test in the SNAP program. It's not a test in the Medi-Cal program. Removing it in the CalWORKs program will help align these programs. It will also remove an important barrier to work. Research shows that for CalWORKs parents who have one barrier to work, they're significantly limited in being able to transition from CalWorks to work. When they have two, they go down to 25% of them are able to transition from CalWorks to work. Remember, CalWorks is a program to help families attain economic self-sufficiency, and by removing the auto resource rule for the CalWorks program, we are going to eliminate a barrier to work, especially in rural communities where there isn't access to public transportation. So again, we think this is an important policy change. It's been around for a while, and this is the year that we need to pass it. So we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers in favor, can you identify yourself and your position?
Mr. Chairman and members, Casey Kaneko of Suter & Associates on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco in support. Thank you.
Julian DeVorce with the Urban Counties Caucus, also in strong support.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter in support.
Dee Hamby, a California National Organization of Women in strong support, as well as Legal Services for Prisoners with Children in strong support.
Cindy Hillary, Regional Council of Rural Counties in support.
Kelly Brooks, California State Association of Counties, also in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Martha Flammer, representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in support.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of Laborers Local 777 and 792 in support.
Frank Mecca on behalf of the County Welfare Directors Association in very strong support.
Tia Orr on behalf of SEIU, we're in strong support.
Beth McGovern with the California Commission on the Status of Women in strong support.
Kevin Aslan, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organization support. Thank you.
Any other speakers in favor? Can we ask the speakers opposing the bill to please come forward? Are there anybody opposing bills? Okay. I don't see any. So questions of the committee members? Mr. Jones and Mrs. Grove.
Mr. Hernandez, I certainly support where you're moving towards on this bill. The challenge I have is kind of just moving from where we're at to eliminating the test altogether. I'm wondering if you would, consider an amendment that would, rather than eliminate the vehicle asset test, maybe increase it from where it is currently to a higher number, and then I'd be willing to have a discussion regarding that and support that. And kind of where I'm coming from with this, in my personal experience, previously being on staff at a church, we would have benefactors come forward and donate their cars, and folks would volunteer to fix it up, and then that we would donate it to a needy family. And sometimes those cars were worth more than what the number is here. So it would eliminate them from being able to participate in other programs. So I certainly support raising the limit. And I'm just wondering, are you looking to eliminate the asset test altogether, or would you consider a higher limit?
With all due respect, that would be a no-go for me. It's a non-starter. In California, we are the king state when it comes to commuters moving from home and work.
Right.
We are the freeway state, and we have to look at the scenarios that have been presented to us across California. There are a lot of divorced women. We have a growing number of poverty amongst women, and percentage-wise in California, because of the rising divorce rates. These are women that may have a car that was paid off, but because they might have been domestic engineers, housewives dedicated, have no income, and to blame them for that asset when they're trying to make ends meet is really grossly unfair. And we're looking to get people back to work. We're looking to reduce that 12% unemployment rate. And clearly, I believe the Welfare to Work program, the two, is that vehicle in California. So I ask respectfully for your aye vote.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question. There was a bill a couple of years ago in 2008, AB 2480, that increased the asset value to $7,000. Were you guys in support of that bill? Do you recall?
I don't have that information. I don't even. Do you know who the author was? Or
Assemblyman Sharon Runner. It was Miss Runner, and we were not in support of the legislation. And the reason being, again, when we're looking at saving the state money and what this test actually does, as I mentioned, based on the LA data, we're talking about less than 0.1% of folks that are actually impacted by this. But the counties, all 58 of them, are applying this to anyone who walks into the door and has a car. Some counties don't even have, I've learned, computers set up, and so they're actually flipping through a Cali Blue Book and asking you all these questions about what year is your tires, do you have automatic windows or not, do you have a stereo or not, to make a subjective determination of what your car's worth. This is costing the state money to have to implement this test, and it's only impacting a really tiny amount of folks. And so it makes no sense to continue to have a test that's archaic, outdated, and counterproductive. You're wasting money applying a test that's only keeping a small number of folks out.
I just want to clarify. You said that county services, there's not a computer in some.
No, I'm not saying that all of them. I'm saying that in some counties you have folks that are going through Cali Blue Book, that you're applying a test, the vehicle asset test. When a family comes and applies for CalWorks for temporary assistance, they'll start asking how much the car is worth.
Exactly.
That you're applying this test that, based on LA County data, again, 1/3 of the CalWorks population is in LA County. 160,000 families applied in 2009. Of those 160,000 families that applied, 6,800 were turned away because they didn't meet certain criteria. Only 11 of those families were because the vehicle cost more than $4,650.
Okay,
and yet
so
you're
back to the
applying,
original
right, so you're
So
applying
when the
this
bill was-
test.
When a bill was introduced to increase the value of that to $7,000, you guys opposed that.
No, we didn't.
Kind of like-
We didn't take a position on it,
didn't take a
Ms.
position.
Grove.
Okay,
We right.
Okay,
We didn't take a position.
Okay.
Okay, you just,
Sorry.
yeah,
Mr.
no,
Chair.
that's
With
fine.
all due
Do
respect.
you have other questions, Member Grove?
And it's a non-starter for you to take a limit now.
It's a non-starter because of the scenario that I described right now. Again, with a divorced woman that may have a vehicle that was paid in full before divorce, it may have been worth $10,000, but has with no income coming in, maybe no roof over her head either. That might be the living situation, the vehicle, and that happens, unfortunately, for many families. Many people in your district and Mr. Jones' districts and all of our districts are facing this reality today, and our goal is to get people back to work. The bureaucratic administrative cost it will outweigh the cost of that 0.1% that we've denied. So if we're looking to save money and get people back to work, then this is the kind of bill that we want to move forward. And I think that's what we're seeing. No opposition on this bill, and you've seen a long list of supporters that want California moving again in the right direction.
I agree that we need to put people back to work. I don't think this is the bill mechanism that will give people a job. I think this is a bill mechanism that will allow people to gain benefits from a welfare system. So I don't think it has to do with getting people back to work. I mean, easing regulation, promoting a healthy business climate puts people back to work. So I disagree with you respectfully in that statement you just made. But on the flip side of what you said, not just the housewife or the domestic homemaker person that you used as an example, somebody could potentially drive a Mercedes and still be entitled to welfare or taxpayer benefits. Is that because there's no limit at all? Is that a possibility?
It all depends on what scenario is presented. Everyone's situation is different. We know today that there are a lot of people that are out of work, that lost their job recently laid off, and they may have a Mercedes-Benz that is 80% owed to the bank. You know, so what worth is that to the actual individual that's now out of work, out of income, and is maybe on the verge of being foreclosed on their home? Again, the reality here is we have to look at California's, I would say, distinct reality is that people have to get on freeways. They got to get on roads to get to work. This isn't a tool to do just that. And when you look at the worth of a vehicle as a test, and for it to be 0.1% as a reason to deny a vehicle being worth more than the $4,650, it's not a compelling issue. It's negligible. The cost for the bureaucracy to run the test costs more than the savings of denying that 0.1%. And that's why it makes more sense to keep these people moving and getting to work.
And just as a reminder,
Excuse me.
okay.
Yeah.
If I could just comment, Ms. Grove, the data does not reflect that scenario that you propose, which is why 33 states have eliminated the vehicle asset test, and why 5 states, and just recently Alabama was one of them in 2010, eliminated the entire asset test. eliminating also that $2,000 savings limit. And so this example that you set forth is not what's happening throughout the state and the country.
Okay, Mr. Jones, Vice Chair Jones has a question.
Mr. Hernandez, you stated factually that the cost of the program, the savings from implementing your bill will save more than what it costs. Do you have a source? Can you cite a source to back that up, please?
I'll defer to Ms. Calderon on that one.
I believe Mr. Hernandez is citing legislation that was carried by the chair of the committee along with Assemblyman Fuentes that would have eliminated the entire asset test. And in Assembly appropriations, I believe the consultant was Julie Sally Gray, found that the administrative savings, I think it would be a net savings to the state of about $2 million. And that was Assembly Bill 2368. That's what the appropriation analysis
Well, it
found.
got through the Assembly in its wisdom, and the Senate in its wisdom stalled the bill because they are not as astute as the Assembly on this particular issue. But the Assembly approved the bill, and we voted on it in this committee. Mr. Hall, you remember that. Mr. Portantino.
Do you remember the Assembly bill number?
2368 and 1058.
We can get you all those. I can certainly get you my file that I've not thrown away on the vehicle asset test. Quite frankly, it's a institutional kind of thing that basically, if you like employing staff to ask people the value of their vehicle, and you heard Los Angeles, they had all these staff waste a lot of staff time asking people how much their vehicle is worth, and going out and kicking the tires and looking at it and coming up with a Kelley Blue Book value on a vehicle. And then what do? They denied 11 people out of 168,000 people. I mean, that's a waste of taxpayers' money. Right. I mean, so that's why we found that it saves over $2 million.
Right.
So it's kind of if you want to have a welfare system that checks how much money somebody makes, what's their salary, and put a limit on it, that's a more appropriate way of determining who is eligible and who isn't. But to have somebody's vehicle, when we have jobs that are, a lot of people have to drive 50, 60, 70 miles to get to their jobs every day, right. And we don't have a lot of jobs in California. Some people are going to find jobs that they have to drive a long way. And so that's the reason why it's in the best interest, I think, and that's why Mr. Fuentes and I introduced that bill. And so basically, that's where we're coming from. It's been a long-standing debate, I think, in it, and I think it's been a debate that the Assembly has always concluded it's a good idea to eliminate the asset test, and then it went over to the Senate. It didn't quite make it through at that time.
Mr. Chair, I believe this bill is going to get out of this committee, so I'd like to just call for the question at this point.
Okay. Will you call the roll, please? Would you like to close?
Just thank you for the opportunity to present myself before you in this very important bill before all of you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Jones?
No.
Jones, no. Amiano? Grove? No. Grove, no. Hall?
Aye.
Hall, aye. Portantino? Aye. Portantino, aye. 3, 2, on call.
For the people in the audience, I'd like to announce that AB 73, Mr. Fear's bill, has been pulled from the agenda. This is the dependency proceeding bill on public access. This will be a 2-year bill, so over the next year we'll be working with the author on this bill. It'll come back next session, and so those that are in the audience on that particular item, we will not hear that item today, and thank you very much for attending our meeting. Let's see.
I'm sorry, here it is right here.
And your bill is on call. You have one vote short.
Amiano. Grab Amiano.
Mr. Amiano. Yeah. He's in the Health Committee.
Yeah, I'm heading there now.
He has to be in both committees. It's crazy.
I play that game in the morning.
Yeah,
so I know all
yeah,
about
yeah. Mr. Portantino, my pleasure is to call you to present your bill, and welcome, and thank you for being here.
Somebody left their headphones.
And we'll now hear AB 181. This is Mr. Portantino's bill that is on the Foster Youth Mental Health Bill of Rights. So,
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chair and members. Even with our best efforts, foster youth may undergo multiple placements before the right one is identified. If they're lucky, suitable placements come quickly, but sadly this is not often the case. Foster youth sometimes find themselves...
Mr. Chair, move the bill.
With that quick motion and second, basically this is a foster youth mental health bill of rights. We should do everything we can for these children. Chantel and others.
We have other witnesses, so you have the floor. The witnesses, please.
Well, since the motion was that quick, really quickly, my name is Chantal Johnson, and I'm the legislative advocate for an organization called California Youth Connection. Basically, we're a nonprofit that has members age 14 to 24 that are current and former foster youth. This Mental Health Bill of Rights is a completely organic bill in that the intent language was developed by current and former foster youth of a committee and has been worked on from many advocates to make it in legal terms. So I just want to say that all of this language for current rights and new additional rights have been developed by the youth, and we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin West, and I'm a policy intern for California Youth Connection, and I'm also a member of a group called Youth in Mind, which is advocates for people who've been impacted by the mental health system from ages 13 to 28. And for me, I was impacted by the mental health system, and it's really important I'm a former foster youth. It's really important for foster youth to have a single access point for to make sure their rights are being taken care of.
Okay.
And my name is Naomi Cole from California Youth Connection. And I think that I feel it would be important to have some time before you start therapy, to have some time to develop a relationship before you start your therapy, which leads into having interviewing your therapist, interviewing therapists.
Okay, other witnesses, please. Please come forward. Thanks for staying this long.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. My name is Jonathan Colon. I'm the treasurer of the Monterey County chapter of CYC, and I strongly support this bill.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Princess. I'm from the Alameda County chapter of California Youth Connection, and I strongly support this bill.
Hello, my name is Lazara, and I'm the chair for the Legislative Committee for California Youth Connection, and I strongly support this bill.
Jennifer Gabalis with the California Alliance for Child and Family Services. We support the bill if it's amended. We have some concerns about the ability for it to be implemented and want to make sure it's clarified some of the rights with current statute, and we're looking forward to working with the author on the amendments. Thank you.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter in support.
Mary Riemersma, California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists in support.
Kelly Brooks on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. We've taken a support and concept position. We realize that there's a variety of stakeholders that have provided comments to the author, and there may be additional amendments forthcoming, and hence our position.
Good afternoon, Kirsten Barlow with the California Mental Health Directors Association. We also have a similar position in terms of thanking the author and the staff at CYC for being willing to talk with us about some of our clarifications that we think are necessary in the bill as it moves forward, and wanted to thank committee staff for outlining many of the issues and suggestions we sent in your analysis. So thank you.
Good morning, I'm Chantal Harris from Contra Costa County, chapter of CYC. in our support.
Thank you.
Leslie Heimob, Children's Law Center of Los Angeles. We're in support of the bill, but would like to be a resource to the author and the sponsor on amendments that might make it a little more clear and to be sure that the bill is achieving what they hope it to.
Hi, I'm Katina, and I'm from San Francisco, and I'm supporting the bill.
My name is Aaron from a chapter support it.
Frank Micka with the County Welfare Directors in support.
Thank you. Witnesses opposing the bill? Seeing none. Mr. Portantino, you have accepted various amendments, and my understanding is this is going to be a process where we're going to all work together and refine the bill as it goes along, but at this point, I think you did a good job, and thank you for working with everybody and pulling this together, and I'm happy to support the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as it's been said, this has really been youth-driven, and as you can see,
thank you.
Kids taking time out of their day to come here and advocate for something as basic as having a mental health Bill of Rights. So thank you for your support and staff support and all of the stakeholders for coming together to work with the youth. Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the bill as amended. And do we have any other questions from the committee? Mrs. Sparrow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, Chantal, I know that you're from my district, actually, and I appreciate you, Mr. Portantino, bringing this bill forward because in my private business, we have a program where we employ foster youth, and I think your boyfriend is working for us.
One of
your people. So I think I should have.
Too much effort.
I could have really started a rumor. Her fiance. No, I'm teasing. No, but I appreciate that. Right. I do have a concern, though, about just the vague and open-ended language. You never want to just leave something just out there for anything. So I was encouraged to hear some of the support, and I'm going to lay off in the committee, but if it comes to the floor and you still have the support that was brought up, and you've addressed these amendments, then I'd be glad to support this bill moving forward. So thank you, sir.
Okay. Other questions from members? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Portantino, close that.
Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. So we'll call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Jones? Jones not voting. Amiano? Aye. Amiano, aye. Grove? Grove not voting. Hall? Hall, aye. Hall, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. The bill is out.
Bill's out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Calderon has a bill, and he's asked, as the majority leader has asked, that Mr. White present the bill.
Here's his letter.
And then we have a letter on file from majority leader, and right here we have a letter. For the new members, when a member is not able to present a bill, under the rules, we accept a written letter requesting a staff member, and if that's done in a timely manner, we accept that as an alternative to the member. So that Mr. White will present the bill for Mr. Calderon.
That's item 14.
And that's item 14. That's AB 181, 1015.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Appreciate the opportunity to present this bill on behalf of Mr. Calderon. First of all, I'd like to offer the author's amendments that are reflected in your committee analysis, which would essentially modify the current California Child and Family Service Review process by ensuring that in developing the county self-assessment and county improvement plans, each county will consult specified stakeholders.
There's a motion and a second to move the bill as amended. Go ahead.
I ask for your aye vote.
Okay. Other witnesses?
Tia Orr, a proud sponsor of the bill from SEIU, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
Ed Howard, proud co-sponsor of the bill with SEIU. This bill is about freeing up social workers to do social work, not paperwork. Please ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Other witnesses support, please.
Libby Sanchez, Laborers Local 777 and 792, also in support.
Okay. Any opposition to this bill? Questions from the committee? None. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll call a roll, please. Oh, excuse me, you want to offer a closing statement?
I vote, please.
Okay, thank you. He did.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Jones? Jones, no. Amiano? Aye. Amiano, aye. Grove? Hall? Hall, aye. Portantino? Aye. Portantino, aye. The bill is out.
The bill's out. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. White. Okay, we have those.
That's it. We just got to lift our calls.
Okay, we have some bills that have been on call, and we will have to lift the call, and we'll start with item number 12. This is AB 899, Member Yamada's bill, and that is item number 12 on our agenda.
Was item 16 full? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Donnelly asked that bill be made a 2-year bill and pulled the bill.
And 21?
Yeah, we had several that were done that way. 21, 16, number 1, item 1 on the agenda. And, yes. Okay, we'll lift the call on item number 12. This is Yamada's bill, and right now the vote is
3-2.
3-2 with Mr. Amiano.
Amiano? Aye. Amiano, aye. Bill is out.
That bill is out. Next item is item number 10. This is Mr. Dickinson's bill on the Children's Cabinet of California. Mr. Amiano?
Aye. Amiano, aye. It's out.
That bill is out. We'll next go to Mr. Chesbro's bills, item number 20, AB 1244.
And it's the chair that was absent.
Aye. I guess aye.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. And Bill is out.
Bill is out. Item number 20, AB 1244. Next item is Member Carter's bill. This is AB 596, item 7 on our agenda on child care, CalWORKS recipients' rights.
Lift the absence.
Lift the call, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Hall?
All aye.
Hall, aye. The bill is out.
That bill is out. Mr. Garrick, AB 373.
Item number 3.
Item number 3.
Say lift the call.
Lift the call, please.
Bell?
No.
Bell, no. Amiano? No. Oops. Amiano, no. Hall? Hall not voting. Bill fails.
That bill fails. Item number 11. This is AB 486.
846.
846. And we'll lift the call.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Amiano? Aye. Amiano, aye. The bill is out.
That bill is out. The next one is AB 1182, Mr. Hernandez, item 19.
Lift the call.
Lift the call.
Amiano? Aye. Amiano, aye. Bill is out.
The bill is out.
I believe we're done.
Okay. And that concludes our meeting, and we'll accept add-ons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Grove.
Mr. Hall? Did you want to add on?
Yes.
Mr. Amiano? I think you're the only two that I'm missing.
Okay.
So let's...
Ms. Grove, did you have a question?
Not voting. Mr. Amiano's...
Add on.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
On which one?
On Mitchell's bill?
Yes, aye. Thank you. You can add on to
On
the.
10:15?
She wants to add. She wants to vote on